morning and welcome to Morning Movie News, which today has a theme. And that's how Hollywood is changing like never before in the face of several genuine threats. For instance, for many people, their first choice to see a movie is no longer the movie theater. Also, television has upped its game so much in terms of quality that films actually find themselves competing with TV for audience eyeballs. The same thing is also kind of going on at a global scale with the foreign film market, and that foreign countries are doing such a great job with their movies that they're competing with Hollywood quite effectively in their own box offices. And the films are also getting so good that they have the potential to maybe come here and become competitive with Hollywood fare in the domestic box office, the US box office. So what's Hollywood doing to survive? That's what we're going to discuss today. Now, the first story is about where people watch movies. On demand, of course, started out as a more tech-savvy way to rent a movie. Instead of having to go to Blockbuster, the movie would come right to you. But then indie films kind of took advantage of that because they found they weren't competitive at the box office, but they could kind of give themselves an edge by saying, hey, here's a first-run movie that's playing in theaters right now, but you can watch it from the comfort of your own home. And this has been very successful. For instance, it was widely publicized that The Man of Tai Chi, Keanu Reeves' directorial debut, made millions on demand, yet it couldn't even make a dent at the box office in theaters. So a number of independent films, as I've said, are doing this, and they release either day and date on demand, or sometimes even in advance. For instance, Enemy, the Jake Gyllenhaal film, opened first on demand. It's already available. You can watch it at home. And also The Double, the upcoming Jesse Eisenberg film, will be, I think, first available on demand, and then you can see it in theaters if you want to. Now, this has been very good for these small little films that can't compete, but at the same time, it's created a stigma against this kind of distribution policy because it's like saying it's admitting your film can't compete at a higher level. So only the small films have been willing to do it. But that's going to kind of change this Friday with the Veronica Mars movie, which I think will be the most mainstream film to date to kind of adapt this day and date release policy. But why is Warner Brothers doing this? Why are they handicapping their film to some degree? Although also there is some rumor that 50 Shades of Grey will also go this route because they feel that it's such a racy film that people might be embarrassed to go see it in theaters, but feel a lot safer, anonymously clicking on the button at home on their TV remote. But Veronica Mars is going to go this route first. And Warner Brothers is saying the reasoning is because the money was raised for this film over Kickstarter, another game changer, another way Hollywood is changing. But anyway, since it was raised over Kickstarter, anyone who donated $35 or more to the film gets a downloadable copy right away. That's part of the deal that was made with them. So I think Warner Brothers feels because these digital copies will be going out day and date anyway, I think they're worried about piracy. So they're like, well, people might say, well, I'll watch a pirated version at home. So let's offer them an official version, and maybe we can kind of counteract that way. But that's kind of like the rumor behind the scenes as to why Warner Brothers is doing it. Rob Thomas, the creator of Veronica Mars, has said they're just doing this to make sure the most amount of people can see the film, to really make sure it gets out to all the fans. But I feel from a business point of view, I think they're handicapping their box office chances because, right now, it's interesting because television ratings changed where they started reporting how people watched it later on, either downloading it or on their DVR. That's been slowly but surely being factored into ratings. But that's not happening yet in movies. So when they report the box office for Veronica Mars, they're only going to report how the film did at theaters, and they're not going to bring in these on-demand numbers. Now, if this becomes the norm, maybe that will change. Maybe it'll be like television, where box office starts reporting theatrical gross and also on-demand gross if it's released day and date, which would be fascinating. And I see us potentially moving in that direction. I think movie theaters do a worse and worse job with the movie-going environment, and also money becomes a factor. And I think if Netflix gets into this, as I've mentioned in other morning movie news, if Netflix gets into the game and starts producing films and shortening the window between the theatrical release and the on-demand release, the whole thing, just where you watch a movie, could just really go up in the air. But I'm curious to how you guys feel about it. Do you feel it's less exciting for a movie to open on demand? How do you feel about Veronica Mars? Is this a special situation? And also, where do you plan to watch Veronica Mars? Are you going to watch it in theaters, or since it's available on demand, are you just going to stick with that? I think this is just a fascinating development, and I think we should all watch Veronica Mars and potentially 50 Shades of Grey very closely as we see these bigger, more mainstream films going the route that was previously reserved just for independent film. All right, so that's the first story of the day. The second story of the day deals with Terminator. Now, a lot of news broke while I was on vacation about how the casting for Terminator and how they're moving forward. Alan Taylor, who directed Game of Thrones and Thor: The Dark World, is helming it. I believe Emilia Clarke from Game of Thrones will be playing the new Sarah Connor. And then they have Jason Clarke, I think, is one of the actors in that. And then there's another, Jai Courtney will also be in the film. So I think, I don't know how box office friendly that casting is, but the reason I'm bringing it up is because for some other aspects that were revealed. Now, as we've heard, the producers of this new Terminator reboot have been also actively producing a television show, a companion television show. And people have been wondering, what will the setup be? How will this relate to the movie universe? I mean, I loved Sarah Connor Chronicles. It was an amazing show, and it ended on such a cliffhanger. I'm still kind of annoyed about it. But anyway, now we have another television show coming about, and people are wondering how that would fit in with the movie. And so details have come out, and the rumor is, it's not totally 100% confirmed, but this is what people are saying. And that is that, just like with J.J. Abrams' Star Trek, how it created two timelines, something's going to happen in this Terminator reboot that creates two timelines. One will continue on in the movie universe, and the other will continue into the TV series. And that way, they're saying they're doing this, not only for the quirky interest, isn't that interesting factor, but also because by having two separate timelines, they don't need to rely on the movie stars that are in the movie. They can, that's something we discuss a lot about the, Marvel moving into television and also potentially DC. How can they have these shows in the same universe and not have their movie talent show up? So this is what the Terminator team has come up with. It's an alternate timeline. So I guess they're hoping that you'll watch both, and maybe they'll kind of reflect on each other, and they're giving the comparison sliding doors. So I think it's very interesting to see what if people like one better than the other. I think it depends on what channel this Terminator show airs on. I think that network is not capable of having the same quality as film. Some shows come close. I like Blacklist. I like Almost Human, but they still obviously are not the level of, for instance, Game of Thrones or Breaking Bad or Mad Men, or even The Walking Dead, some people feel. So I think that, quality is an issue, but then what if people like the television version better than the movie version? How linked are they? Will the failure of one affect the other? I just think it's very risky, but it's another experiment here about where people are going to watch your product. Will this be a joint movie-going experience, or will people choose a path? I'm just curious to how you guys feel. We'll have to see how the movie turns out, but right now I feel it doesn't seem compelling enough that I'm like, that's definitely going to be my first choice for the timeline that I follow. I could see myself watching the TV show instead. And also Arnold Schwarzenegger, he'll be in the movie version as well, I believe. So, but I just think it's an interesting split, and I wonder how you guys feel. Is it feasible? Can it be done? Ron Howard was kind of thinking of this kind of really expansive cinematic universe for Dark Tower, which never materialized. But this is another way to work a television show into a movie franchise. And I'm wondering what you guys think of this version. All right, so that's the second story of the day. The third story is this news that Disney has struck a big deal with the Shanghai Media Group, SMG for short. And this is kind of like, if you can't beat them, join them. And it's a very lucrative deal. It's multi-year, multi-picture. Basically, they're going to take Disney talent and use it over to make films in China. But not just films for China, but films that are primarily for China, but they're meant to compete on a global scale. And the way it's described here, let me just find. Oh yes, okay. We are targeting action, adventure, and fantasy genre films for development and production. Well, development comes before production. I'm not quite sure what that means. But, those are all very big. Those are the genres that are the most successful at the box office and are they play very well across the globe because they're not dialogue reliant. That's not why people go. But nevertheless, these films will be in English and they will be live action. So the fact that these films are being made primarily for a Chinese audience, but in English, is very telling. And I guess that Disney's hoping that they can release them here in the United States and get something out of it. But this is coming out of China's basic feeling that if they want to become globally competitive, they need to up their own game, and that's by bringing in Hollywood talent for writing, special effects. That's something the Monkey King has done. That's a film that's coming out. I believe it's already been released in China, but they brought over Hollywood special effects talent and Hollywood makeup talent. But to start bringing, and also Justin Lin, I've reported, is going over to China to make a film that will be, I think they're shooting both an English language and a Mandarin language version. But so you're seeing this crossover with China like never before. We've never seen this. Films have always done, Hollywood has always exported their films, but they've never actually kind of done crossovers with other film industries. But I think China is such a successful box office, also like never before. We've yet to see another country be able to bring in the kind of numbers, box office numbers that America has, but China is doing that. So this is what you're seeing. You're seeing team-ups. So I'm curious to see what you guys think. People in China, over in Asia, are you interested in these Disney-fied movies? Do you like that Hollywood talent's coming over to work with local talent, Asian talent? Do you think that's a good idea? And also American audiences, will you watch these movies, which will, even though they are, have American talent and will be in English, will have very heavy Chinese influences? I'm curious if you'll be open to that. So that's another really fascinating development, how Hollywood's changing. And that leads me to the viewer question, which is in line with all this. This is from Jonathan Graham, and he says, "Hi, Grandolph." I love Grandolph. That's for a while that was kind of like my sign-in username for places, Grandolph. Like Gandalf, some people had pointed out. Then Jonathan gives me a smiley face. Long-time viewer here from Indie Mogul days. Fantastic. Thank you for sticking with me, Jonathan. I really appreciate it. And Jonathan says, this is the first time he's asking a question. Awesome. With all the changes in the movie world in the last 20 years, tech-wise, what new innovative developments do you see happening in the next 20 to keep people flooding to the cinema? Especially with piracy on the rise, what do you think the studios or even the movie theaters themselves need to do to survive? See, this is right in line with what I've just been talking about this whole episode. And I have to say, I don't think that we can do much more with special effects. I think special effects have gotten quite good. I think maybe the last frontier is realistic animation with humans to the degree that they seem like live action, crossing the uncanny valley. I just recently reviewed the Batman Arkham Knight trailer, which I felt was getting closer to that. There was that Final Fantasy movie, which tried and failed. I think set that whole movement back. Robert Zemeckis tried and failed, which was another setback. But I think that's the final frontier in terms of technology. Animated films that seem live action. That's the next. I think that's all that's left, really. But I do think, Jonathan, that in terms of your question, to keep people going to the cinema, I think it's going to have to be a situation where movie theaters evolve and become more upmarket, upscale. If you're going to ask people to pay so much money to see a movie, I think you have to increase what they're getting. And for instance, AMC has something they're doing slowly but surely of having like movie theaters that are all lazy boy chairs, assigned seating. You can recline, and it's just I think it's a better movie going experience. People are trying these dine-in theaters where you can get a whole meal. There's the ArcLight out in Hollywood. There's Alamo Drafthouse, which has not only food but themed dining. For instance, they're famous for their Lord of the Rings marathon, where they had the food was themed with the movie as you were watching it. And I think that those kind of experiences are where movie theaters are going to have to go to keep people paying those premium prices to go out, because people are getting just as good an experience at home these days without the annoyance of someone on their cell phone, someone talking, and that's something else. I think movie theaters, that's the next frontier for them as well. Not only in terms of the quality of the experience with the luxury and the setting, but also policing their theaters better in terms of keeping people off their phones and staying quiet. Something that both the ArcLight and the Alamo Drafthouse in particular, are famous for. So that's what I think the final frontier is with movies, or the next frontier. And also becoming a more global brand and breaking down the lines, the divide between not only foreign films, but also television, digital. It's going to be interesting to see if this makes the whole entertainment industry more powerful, or it dilutes it so where people just don't quite know who's leading the charge. Maybe the big evolution will be that quality leads the charge. Wouldn't that be a refreshing change of pace? So that's today's morning movie news. I hope you enjoyed it. What do you think of these changes? Do you like where the movie industry is going? Do you think this is a mistake? And do you think that maybe foreign film and television will eat Hollywood, the film industry at least, alive, and they will no longer be leading the charge when it comes to content? So write your thoughts down below. Thank you everybody for tuning in, and you can check out some more episodes right now.